When I first met Francis, he was on the National Organic Standards Board, and he was trying to create a compromise proposal that might somehow allow container growing while still insisting that it be based on the fertility of soil in those containers. And I got involved in helping him to craft that as best that I could, and of course it led to total failure in Florida at the big meeting. But what wasn't a total failure was that this movement really grew out of that effort. And since then, Francis gave a farewell to the NOSB, the National Organic Standards Board, at that meeting. That was his final meeting, and I'm sure many of you have read that. It's been read by many thousands of people, and I have compared it to the Eisenhower's military-industrial farewell speech because it had a similar message. So, Francis?
Thank you, Dave. Before I came back farming in 1992, I served some time at USDA in Washington as a program leader for soil science, a bureaucrat actually. And so it gives me an option to give you one short little anecdote about government bureaucrats, Washington bureaucrats. And it's about oil. You know, in 2008, the price of oil shot up to $147 a barrel. And in about 6 months, it went down to $38 a barrel. And now it's been going up and down and up and down, and nobody seems to be able to predict where it's going. But a farmer friend of mine said he knows why. He said, nobody's checking the oil. You see, most of the oil under this country is under Texas and Oklahoma, but all the dipsticks are in Washington, D.C. So by now you know the answer to this question, right? Both of them are certified organic. And this is my farm, and my wife Susan, who's up front here. We've been farming here since 1992, organically. But what I want to do is look at, people say, how big should a farm be able to be organic? But I think it's more a matter of whether it's an ecologically based system or an industrially based system. And obviously, hydroponics is an input-output industrial system. CAFOs are an input-output industrial system. But a grazing system is very ecologically based. And if you look at that, I'm from Iowa. Iowa likes to brag they have some of the best soils in the world. And when the last glacier left 12,000 years ago, it's interesting. When that glacier left, there was no soil at all. It was a geologic wasteland. And only as plants and animals colonized that loose geologic material and put organic matter in it, they actually created soil. And in 12,000 years, nature's ecology created the most productive soils in the world, you know, up there with the rest of them. And you can see that this is the ecosystem we have in the Midwest. Here, there's more of the forest soils, but the similar processes. This is from the Land Institute. Look at what those the ecology had there for roots. Compare now to our modern annual crops. Here's wheat, and there's a huge difference. And the other difference is that annual crops have live roots in the soil for only about 4 or 5 months of the year. So most of the year, there are no live roots to protect the soil and to feed the life of the microbiology and so on. That's a huge difference. So what I'm going to argue is that we need to mimic nature's ecology, design our systems like nature designs them. And basically, our soil loss in the Midwest, probably here too, where corn and soybeans are growing, the average erosion rate is about 5.5 tons per acre per year. A lot of research shows soil farms at about half a ton per acre per year. So we're deficit spending our ecological capital here. We've lost half our topsoil in Iowa, and we've lost 60% of our organic matter in Iowa, according to research. And just as an anecdote, for every gallon of ethanol made from corn, 2 gallons of soil are lost to erosion. That's a different story, though. But look at how nature's ecology works. A lot of diversity, self-sufficient. It didn't take any fertilizer or pesticides to make that prairie grow. Conserves and recycles, because in a natural ecosystem, the waste of one species is food for other species. Everything is cycled and recycled tightly, and it accrues that ecological capital. Now, in the industrial system, we replace that diversity with a monoculture, whether it's monoculture corn in the Midwest, or here we have monoculture, thousands and thousands of hogs, animals as well. 10,000, 20,000 turkeys in one building. And this is organic. We saw earlier, Cameron, I think, showed us this, thousands and hundreds of thousands of chickens in one place. And no access to the outdoors. It's organic. And what I understand is that, and somebody from the USDA said this, that if, this thing's flaying away on its own here, is that if the animal welfare standards had gone into effect, 80% of the organic eggs on the shelf would be disqualified. That's major. And of course, this is our certified organic milk. And that self-sufficiency of a natural ecology is replaced by high input. To grow that corn, it normally takes a lot of fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides to make it grow. And you're fighting against the nature's ecology to do that. And it tends to be leaky, unlike conserving. In the Midwest, we have tile drainage all over, and we're the big contributors to the dead zone, the nitrogen that goes down there. That's another story. Interestingly, recent research in Iowa shows that an organic rotation reduced nitrate leaching by half compared to conventional corn and soybeans. And Iowa's goal is to reduce our nitrate leaching by 41% in order to eliminate our contribution to the dead zone. So just by going to an organic rotation, they actually exceeded the goal. Pretty exciting. One more thing before we go on to something more positive. When people drive around Iowa, they say those hogs, they smell terrible. But it's not the hogs. You're not smelling hogs. You're not even smelling hog manure. In this liquid pit where it's kept, it putrefies, and over 300 volatile organic compounds are created in that. And so when you smell that, you're not smelling hogs or manure. You're smelling the industrial waste storage that putrefies that material. Compare that to the cow pie out in the pasture. There are billions of bacteria under there just waiting for a meal, and here it is. And that's decomposed aerobically. Carbon dioxide and water is the end product. Here on our farm, I kicked over cow pies in the spring when they were dried out and counted 30 to 40 earthworms under each one. It's a different system. And of course, composting is also a different system. It's natural. So how can we use that, what nature can teach us, the nature's ecology, the organizing power, the efficiency, how can we harness that? And that's what I'm going to look at now. Well, of course, people are using the term regeneration. Basically, it means things like keeping the soil covered all the time, keeping living plants growing as much as possible in the soil, till as little as possible. We can't completely do that, maybe in organic, and as much diversity as possible. So this is the farm we moved to. It was a farmstead that had disappeared. There was only a little corn crib left, but it had been in corn and soybeans for many years. And we're in southern Iowa, and Iowa you think of as flat, but it's pretty steep there. So this is what my waterways looked like. I had gullies in the waterways this deep, and on a lot of the hillsides, all the topsoil was gone. The A horizon was gone. And so it's like a glacier just left. I'm kind of starting over again. So what we did is, I didn't show a picture of it. We planted it to a diversity of grasses and clovers, and we split up the farm into about 60 paddocks. These are the lanes going through where the cows can go out to the paddocks. And so twice a day, the cows get fresh grass. Usually I give them half a paddock at a time. And so they rotate around, of course, and then it regrows by the time they get back again. And that has a lot of benefits. It's kind of like the bison. Part of the reason that our soils are so rich in Iowa is when the bison would come through and the prairie grass was tall and deep-rooted, they would graze that off, and then when the plant was short, it didn't need that whole root mass off, and it would slough that root mass in the ground. It would grow new tops and new roots, and those grazing episodes would pulse that organic matter deep in the ground, which is what built our soil. So we're using that same principle of allowing the grasses to get taller and grow deeper in the ground, and then build that soil up. Here's a picture of the cows where they just graze, and here's the fence between, and this is where they're going next. So we can rotate around. This is not what we're doing. Most pastures, you see, they're out in the pasture all the time, and they nip it to the ground. And of course, when you have short grass, it's not very resilient when it gets dry. And this picture shows this is the pasture we just saw on the last slide. The root system is pretty well gone. If this is an ungrazed one, and if we take about half and leave about half, we can maintain a pretty healthy root system. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, this is not our farm, but this is what happened. Looking at the energy, too. When cows are in confinement, they're just waiting for their meal to come to them. And so you have to go out and harvest the material, chop it here in this case, put it into storage, feed them day by day, collect the manure, and then at the end, take it back out to the field again. All those steps take a lot of energy, and without cheap oil, we wouldn't have done that. One grazer said, it's the nature of grass to stand in one place and the nature of cows to move about. But what we've done is made the cows stand in one place, made the grass move to the cows. And how smart is that? So the thing is that if you can design it right, like our lane system, all we do after milking is open the next gate, and you saw how the cows can run out there. They know what's out there. And we close the gate, and then they harvest their own feed. They spread their own manure right where it needs to be. And they enjoy their work, and they're happier and healthier because they're in a natural environment. And it's healthier all the way around. I've talked about better for the soil, and we have more diversity in the landscape if we manage it right, which is better for wildlife habitat, and it's healthier for the cows. They're reaching their natural diet and their natural habitat, and healthier for the people. And Susan always makes butter and clarified butter, ghee out of our milk, our cream in the summertime, and then we keep it for all winter. And one winter, you can see this is it right here, how dark that is. One winter, we ran out in the middle of winter, and so she made some from the same cows, but they were on dry feed, and you can see the difference in that. And we've heard a lot about how milk from cows on grass is more nutritious. And of course, then we don't need all that harvesting equipment. The cows do it, and they like to do it themselves, so we can get by with having these little more fun things to run around with. And so here's where we milk the cows on this side, and we process our milk on the farm on this side, and then we take it to town local. We sell most all of it locally. We have a simple milking parlor, a double 8 milking parlor, and we have a regular old bulk tank like every other farm, but we have a processing plant right through the wall, and the milk comes through the wall into our pasteurizing vats, and then we bottle it, and we make bottled milk and yogurt and cheese, and we market almost all of it locally, all in Iowa. This is one of the local grocery stores. It's locally owned, everybody's Whole Foods, and maybe some of you know something about Fairfield, Iowa. It's a little bit unique demographics. This store has all Whole Foods mostly, and their produce here is all organic. Most stores have a little corner for organic, but this store has a little corner of... So here's our product on the shelf. Yeah, we would like to go to glass, but if anybody got a spare $100,000, I'll do that. But we leave all, for example, the whole milk we don't homogenize, and it's Jersey milk, and we don't take any cream off, so it's like 5 to 5.5% butterfat. You can see the cream line here. And people now know that whole milk is good for you. It's a whole food. Skim milk is not a whole food. And here's our skim milk. This little line right here. This is the whole 2%. So and then we put our yogurt in tall quart bottles because we don't have a cup filler. But people like that Jersey yogurt, and we sell the cream as whipping cream. I wanted to do quickly yet, I think if I got a second, for cropping too. At first we had 172 acres, and now we bought some more additional land, and we're doing more cropping organically. And others have talked about this, but I think it's a really exciting thing, is that we grow rye up about this tall. Instead of conventional farmers will grow rye about this tall and hit it with glyphosate in the spring. And so you don't get a lot of roots and you don't get a lot of biomass. But here we run that up, we get about 8,000 pounds per acre biomass on the surface, plus the roots. And then well, actually I went through, in this case, and planted first. I went and planted soybeans right into that tall biomass. And some of it's still stuck up, but then we rolled it down, and then it's just flat. And then you wait a few days and up come the soybeans, and away they go. And if you get it done right with enough biomass, for example, you basically have a pretty much weed-free field. So it's really exciting to me to see that option, and I'm looking at how I can also integrate the cover crops with my pastures and grazing. I think I'm done right there. Thank you.